and welcome to our Small Business Under Siege special. Small Business Under Siege special. That's actually more difficult to say than you actually think so, but look, I'm a seasoned professional. I've been doing television for 9 months now, so you leave the language to me, you just sit back and enjoy. And if it looks like I'm kind of smiling, kind of smirking, it's because, well, I'm about to dump a truckload of horrible news on you. And we might as well laugh while we do it, right? I mean, what smiling face could you put on this kind of destruction? There's nothing else you can say. We have a report out today. 100,000 businesses. 100,000 small businesses are already gone for good. Gone for good. Now, before we get into everything, what Steve Mnuchin said, what the regular people were saying, what this poor barbershop owner, or all these people. I want you to understand how this happened briefly. This happened, a virus broke out in China. We knew there was a virus in China. All of a sudden, we start getting word that this is a bad virus in China. We watched how China responded to it, welding people in their apartments. And of course, we as Americans don't want to respond how China responds, right? But then the virus hit Italy. You remember the virus hitting Italy? You remember all those horrible videos? And half the videos turned out to be hoaxes. But you remember the horrible videos? Oh my gosh, they're dying in the hallways. They're chucking grandma out the window. Ah! And then we had one or two infectious disease experts who got on TV and said, hey, probably looking at 2 million dead Americans, sorry. And everybody hit the panic button. And there were very, very few of us. I'm happy to be one of them, but what good does that do any of us now? There were very, very few of us in the beginning who stood up and said, whoa, no, let's hold up on this here. You don't stop an economy. But by that point in time, people were so scared, and momentum is such a powerful thing that it couldn't be stopped. That it wouldn't have mattered if there were 1,000 me's, which, let's be honest, there's never going to be another one. But it wouldn't have mattered if there were 1,000 me's with this platform saying, no, yep, that's a bad idea. That freight train was a-rolling. And now that the panic train is rolling full speed, people are trying to slow it down. The president himself is trying to slow it down. I'm going to show you Steve Mnuchin here in a second, trying to slow it down. But how do you get that genie back in the lamp? How do you get the toothpaste back in the tube? I don't have any more analogies, otherwise I'd bring those up right now. It's hard. Now the public thinks they're going to die if they leave their house. They think grandma's going to die. And even though those numbers are going down, and people are looking at the economic destruction and saying, okay, we got to get back to work, you still have so many people who are committed mentally. Once you commit yourself mentally, it's hard to break out of that, and they think they're going to kill grandma. When you add in the political factor too, that these leftist governors and mayors in these leftist areas where they're going to get reelected or don't care about getting reelected, what incentive do they have to open their economies back up? They're all still collecting a paycheck. They can sit and keep their economies closed forever, act like they're playing it safe, saving lives, while at the same time screwing the greatest thing Donald Trump had going for him to get reelected, and that's the economy. To his credit now, Trump and his administration seems to realize this, that we got to get going again. Like now, here's Steve Mnuchin.
If we do this carefully, working with the governors, I don't think there's a considerable risk. Matter of fact, I think there's a considerable risk of not reopening. You're talking about what would be permanent economic damage to the American public.
Yeah. And again, I'm going to try to stop saying this, but I told you so. I've been screaming this at everybody. This is not, there was this way of thinking that I never understood from some really, really, really smart people that, well, it's just going to pause. What we're going to do is we're just going to go pausies. We'll pause the economy, and then as soon as we're ready to start again, we'll unpause. What kind of idiocy is that? Do you people have no idea how a business actually functions? There's no pause and unpause. There is stopping your economy, which will ultimately destroy lives and businesses permanently, or there's letting it roll, letting it adjust to a pandemic, how it moves here, how it moves there. Look, I hate all these brains out there. I'm the one speaking some sanity along with Barstool's president, Dave Portnoy.
And what about people who own businesses and economies and shit like that? You can't stay closed indefinitely. Imagine working for like a year, 5 years, 10 years, 2 decades, grinding your fingers to the bone to build a business. Barstool, thank God, will be all right. I'm talking about other businesses. People have jobs who've worked their whole lives off to put food on the table, create a happy living. They're just going to go out of business. They're going to wake up whenever this thing ends, whenever the mayors say, oh, you can go back to work. Work to what? Your company's going to be out of business. The economy's going to be in the there's going to be no jobs. How the are you going to pay for your family, put food on the table, all that?
Look, even with all the beeps, tell me where he's wrong. He's not wrong. And this is happening now. This is happening right now in America. This is what drove me crazy from the beginning. Everyone acted like, wow, I mean, all those closures, that's down the road. Let's just get a handle on things. No, the second you point at a business and say, close your doors, the clock is ticking. And for some businesses, that was immediate because businesses operate seasonally as well. You have businesses and you think to yourself, well, they're open 12 months a year. I'm sure they make $5,000 in May, $5,000 in June, $5,000, you know, that's not how it works. There are so many businesses in the United States of America that make virtually all their money in a 2 or 3 month span. We have the tattoo parlor guy coming on tonight. Wait till you hear what he has to say about tattoo shops and why they make all their money in a short-term span. You'll hear about that. It's shocking. It's shocking not that that's the situation. It's shocking that all the decision makers in this country didn't know that. How do I know that? And they don't know that. There's no reason for that unless it's willful ignorance or fear. Let's be honest. A lot of this comes from fear. Panic here and panic there. And oh my gosh, and what's happening? And well, you know what? Just close everything down. What? That's something a child would say. And look at what we're doing. A guy opens a bar in Odessa. Look at this. They send the freaking MRAP out there with the SWAT team. That's an anti-mine vehicle that we used in Iraq. We sent that to a guy's dive bar in Odessa, Texas for serving beers. What are we doing in this country? I just... And gym owners. Here's one in Oceanside. Enjoy this.
It's a very daunting and scary situation to see your gym and your dream being taken away from you when you didn't do anything wrong. I feel pretty confident with healthy people coming to the gym that aren't high risk. The sanitation measures we've taken and the social distancing, that we'll be just as safe as any other essential business. I'm not doing this to make a political statement. I never did. I did this to open my business, to feed my family.
Oh, well, no big deal. Of course they should cuff the guy. They did give him a warning. After all, where does this dastardly criminal get off opening up his business and trying to pay his bills? I bet you that guy even wants to feed his family. What a jerk. And then you have this guy who owns the music store in Michigan having his life ripped apart. Watch this.
It's not just the closing of a stupid store. It's the closing of a dream. There was only $32,800 granted for Berry County in total. Of that $32,800, 5 businesses were the recipient of that money. I don't want a stupid handout from the government. I want my hands untied so I can work.
And look, I'm seeing a lot of things, and let me stop this right now. I'm seeing a lot of things, a lot of headlines out there, a lot of news stories that say these jobs are due to a coronavirus. These businesses are closing because of coronavirus. This is happening because of coronavirus. All these people out of work because of coronavirus. There's depression because of coronavirus. Let me stop you right there. No. The coronavirus is China's fault. The coronavirus came from China. Our response to coronavirus is our fault. This is not about the coronavirus. This is our response to the coronavirus. And I'm sick and tired of all these politicians in this country and the pundits who enabled them pass the buck. I'm sick of watching them pass the buck like that every single day now. Well, nothing we can do. It was China. Don't you even try that with me. All that may have made you uncomfortable, but I'm right. We have a great special for you tonight. And when we're done with this special, maybe you're going to lay down in your bed tonight and say to yourself, man, Jesse was awesome. I need to go to sleep now. But boy, I'm laying here and I can't stop thinking about Jesse. I just have these Jesse thoughts racing through my brain. And who could blame you if that was the case? However, you do need sleep eventually. And that is why you need an Ebb Sleep. It is a wearable, drug-free solution. You put it on your head. It provides precise, continuous cooling to your forehead area, which calms all those thoughts down, be they Jesse thoughts or not, puts you to sleep, keeps you asleep. Go to tryebb.com/Jesse. That's tryebb.com/Jesse. Use the promo code Jesse. Give yourself $25 off. See ya. Well, I have people email me all the time. Jesse, why does everyone in Washington suck? Why do all the congressmen suck? Why do all the politicians suck? And sadly, I have to write them back, and instead of agreeing with them, I have to tell them, no, they don't all suck. It's just 99% of them that suck. There are some who are actually there brawling for you every single day, and one of them is my next guest. He is Congressman Chip Roy of the great state of Texas. Congressman, before we get going on everything else, I see you're trying to copy my beard.
Yeah, I can't grow any hair on my head, so I go ahead and just try to get a little bit on my face to make up for it. So, no, I'm in Washington D.C. It shows you how dense I am. I'm up here instead of being back home in the great state of Texas. But someone's got to be up here to try to smack some heads around.
You go smack some heads around up there. I'll be enjoying Tex-Mex back here. Now, you have been actually loudly screaming from the rooftops, we cannot crush this economy like this. I understand publicly what we're all seeing. Everyone sees that. Privately, have you had anybody in our party or even Democrats tell you, hey, man, I agree, this is nuts?
Well, let me say two parties, right? The people that I talk to in the district I represent, they're definitely feeling it and telling me every single day that 53,000 employees and 2,300 restaurants that I represent, for example, getting absolutely hammered by virtue of being shut down. Because as you point out regularly, what do you think is going to happen when you shut down the greatest economy in the history of mankind? What do you think is going to happen when that freight train comes to a screeching halt? We're going to have widespread decimated lives, decimated businesses. And I get those calls all the time. In Washington, people are feeling it somewhat. I'll tell you, my colleagues in the House Freedom Caucus, they're pretty fired up about it. We literally just ended a phone call with the White House Legislative Affairs in which I expressed my strong discontent with what I was hearing out of Dr. Fauci yesterday, continuing this fear campaign that he's been on, which is stifling economic activity. We need to restore confidence in the American people to go back and recognize that half of the deaths are occurring in nursing homes and assisted living facilities, that the vast majority of people aged 0 to 65 could be right back in the saddle tomorrow, and we wouldn't have any significant impact, and we'd be able to have economic growth and jobs instead of 40 million people that we're almost having unemployed right now.
Now, you actually have a bill. Talk about it.
Well, one of the things that we passed in our congressional infinite wisdom a few months ago, and that $2 trillion and then a subsequent $500 billion, had something called the PPP in it. Now, that was the one provision that I thought actually had some merit, because I view this like a government taking. I view this like eminent domain. The governments are stepping in, state, local, and federal, prohibiting Americans from working. So, yeah, we owe them a few dollars to be able to try to get over the hump and get across the bridge to surviving. So we did that. But the problem is Congress messed it up like they always do. They now have they had an unemployment provision in the bill that pays people more to not work than to work. And as a result, they have restrictions on their ability to get the capital that we say they should go take in order to stay open. So my bill, the PPP Flexibility Act, it's a bipartisan bill. There's bipartisan agreement on this, believe it or not, to give greater flexibility to restaurants, small businesses, the hair salon owners, the live music venues, the hotel owners who are all getting hammered, and giving them flexibility so that they don't have the 75% requirement to maintain employment levels. They get longer than the 8 weeks to be able to get the loan to be effective. Look, if we're going to have federal dollars, that is borrow more money on the backs of our children and grandchildren, if we're going to do it, well, we damn well ought to make it work. So that's what this bill would do, and I'm delighted to see there's some movement in D.C. to do it.
Who puts all the garbage in these bills? I always try to get down to the bottom of this. I can never figure it out. Like, you and I will talk, and somebody will have put something horrible in these bills, something that makes you sick. Who's the actual person who puts this crap in the bills? Like that Kennedy Center funding. How did that get in there? A magical fairy didn't fly in and sprinkle it on the bill. A physical human being put it in. Who put it in?
Well, the short answer is, in our system of government, the House is run by majority. You have very few rights when you're a single member of the House. I'm 1/435th of 1/2 of 1/3 of this monstrosity. So Speaker Pelosi basically calls all the shots. And the only way to really combat that is by force from the White House and the Senate. In other words, you need Senate Leader McConnell and the White House to tell Pelosi to pound sand and be willing to mean it. And until they're willing to do that, they're going to, and as long as they continue to allow Steve Mnuchin to negotiate deals with Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi, you're going to end up with crap like that in the bills. And we're going to keep spending money we don't have. We're going to continue to waste it on programs that won't do anything to help the American people, and continue to pile up debt for our kids and grandkids rather than solving the problem. And you know, and I know, we need the economy open. So we should not give one single dollar to any of these state and local jurisdictions that are continuing to prohibit the economy from being open.
Chip, I'm scared to ask the question because I'm worried about the answer. But I see Nancy Pelosi bring up another. You brought up spending just now. I've been mortified. She brought up another $3 trillion bill. We saw Republicans come out and say, no, well, maybe no. Okay, we'll think about it. And I can just see this freight train coming of Republicans bending the knee once again and getting some watered-down concessions and passing another massive spending bill. Please tell me it's not going to happen, Chip.
Well, again, the decision makers on that lie heavily in the White House and in the Senate to hold the line. So if you're listening out there, make sure your senators, whether it's in Texas or anywhere else, make sure they know that you don't want that to happen. Okay, so if you're a listener out there, make sure they know. And in the House, we'll fight it the best we can to highlight what's in it. But here's the normal course of action in Washington. Republicans don't actually fight. What they do is they find some shiny object that they're going to focus on a lot, and then they're going to try to get that one thing and then use that as the excuse to pass $3 trillion of spending. So they'll get one little fix, and then they'll say, look at us, we did such a great job. Meanwhile, we're continuing to pay people more to not work than to work. We're continuing to spend money we don't have. We're continuing to throw money at the NEA or the Kennedy Center. We're continuing to give money to illegals, right? That's the way Washington works. It's what the American people are fed up about. The president needs to remember this. He's been doing a good job challenging the swamp on so many levels. But this is the swampiest of swamp things. And the president needs to highlight it, end it. Get the government out of the way of the American people. Let us live free. Let us live the way our founders gave us, and the way that our forefathers fought to prevent this kind of tyranny. They need to get out there and do it.
Do the people in Capitol Hill, do they think that we can spend money until the end of time like this? Or do they think, and I suspect this is the case, there's no public appetite for cutting spending, so I can't do anything about it?
It's a little bit of both. I think that there is a growing sense here by some that this modern monetary theory nonsense is real and that they can just keep spending money. Now, keep in mind, we have now passed the threshold of 100% GDP to debt, right? So that's what we're looking at now. We have as much debt as we do GDP. That, if you look at the history of humankind, is an important threshold that is not a good sign. We have to get serious about spending, or we're going to decimate the dollar, decimate the strength of our economy. But your second point is right on. The political pollsters, right, will tell you, but talking about spending doesn't sell. And I say, I know, because the way you ask the question, when you talk to the American people, when I go talk to them, they're fed up with a government that's irresponsible. And spending is the main point about irresponsibility. We're funding the very bureaucrats that are taking away our freedom. We're funding the very bureaucrats that went after the president last year during impeachment. That's what's wrong with this town. We need to stop it, and we need to stop running away from the fight. That's what Republicans are best at, and we need to change that.
Tell me something cool about being a congressman. You get like free pizza or something?
No, I wish. You know, that I think probably the best part of being a congressman, besides obviously representing the people that I represent, is, I mean, frankly, the coolest thing I've experienced is walking down to the floor of the House of Representatives with my kids when I got sworn in, and being able to take my kids onto the floor of the House of Representatives. That's by far the coolest thing.
That would work out well, and they would fit in nicely with the other children in the Democrat Party. Congressman Chip Roy of Texas, thank you, my friend.
Thanks, Jesse. God bless.
You too. Kind of disappointed about the pizza. I think they should get free pizza. And everybody, by the way, as long as I've got you here, I realize this has nothing to do with anything, and I realize Chip Roy would totally disagree with this, so I had to wait till he was gone. I think everybody in Congress should get a huge fat raise. Now, before you scream at me, hear me out. Do you think we are led by the most intelligent people in the country? No, of course not. Because look, if you're really that smart or that sharp or that innovative, you go to the private sector. You go make $1 million a year. You don't have to go make 160 or whatever those people make. If we paid them, shorten their term, maybe we would get higher quality people. Actually, I already talked myself out of that. That was a terrible idea. We have more coming. Hang on. Well, it's no secret this thing has been brutal on small businesses. You've heard me talk about it the entire time. These lockdowns are insane. And look, it's easy to sit here on TV and talk about small business this and small business that. Have you heard about small businesses? It's another thing entirely when you actually talk to somebody who's gone through it and somebody who had the guts to stand up against it and got himself put in handcuffs over it. So now let us welcome Jax Myers with the Apex Tattoo Factory in North Carolina. Jax, before we get going on all the other insanity going on right now, what's the most painful place you've ever seen somebody get a tattoo?
That's debatable. Yeah, everybody's different. Usually the
Okay.
rib cage.
Oh, yes, I can see that. All right, you were hauled out of your tattoo parlor on handcuffs. What happened there? Were you dealing meth or something?
Yeah, apparently. No, I was actually protesting. You know, my family was kind of, the clock was running down financially for us, and we still haven't gotten any kind of like SBA or PPP loan to help us. And basically, we've been running off of my savings, and it's we pay double bills. So you can imagine how fast that clock was running down.
Why haven't you been able to get those SBA loans, anything like that? Has your bank given you any explanation? Is there some reason you don't qualify?
No, there's no reason that I don't qualify. The phone lines are all jammed up. They often require paperwork that most people don't understand how to get it to them. And so was the case with me. I kept getting denied for paperwork that I didn't have. And then the day after I got arrested, I had a financial company donate their services, but I'm still in holding. Like they won't verify my bank account, and everything that they need, they don't approve. And it's like, it almost seems deliberate at this point.
I am not asking you, obviously, to divulge anything when it comes to your business. All that stuff's private. But in general, a tattoo parlor in, Sheboygan somewhere, what kind of profit margins do you even make there? Because I think people are under the mistaken impression that everyone who owns a little diner, everyone who owns a tattoo shop, that they own, a fleet of Mercedes-Benzes, 4 or 5 houses, and a yacht somewhere. Would you please explain to people the exact financial situation that others may be in, not yourself?
Well, especially for tattoo shops, there's a huge margin of Americans that get refund back. And so from basically late February to the beginning of May, people have an extra amount of money. And so tattoo artists make a huge amount of their money for the year during tax season. And that's all been taken away from us right now. I mean, this is catastrophic for for any tattoo shop that I've been in contact with.
Oh, that is that's brutal. How long are they telling you now that you're shut down, or have they opened you back up? Where do you currently stand in that state, Jax?
We're still shut down. Pretty much there's only a couple of states that are really pushing this deal, man. And the last that I heard that it was going to be late June.
Oh, jeez, late June. What's late June? What's that kind of situation? What's that put you in?
I mean, we haven't made anything. We're not getting anything. So, I mean, technically, I could even lose my home. It's gone way past just losing the business at this point.
Good grief. All right, Jax, tell me about this clothing line. I'm sorry.
Okay, so basically, everybody wanted to start a GoFundMe and give me, money, and I've just not raised that way. So I had a 2.0 version of my t-shirt company that I was trying to do from the ground up. And so I had some simple non-color designs that I was doing myself and giving and selling to people, but I had to find a broader spectrum. So I filed for a trademark for unaltered 1776, and I outsourced a majority of the printing, which, if anybody knows about that, I make about a third of what I would make if I was doing it myself. So, but it's an honest wage, and sir.
All right, plug it. What is it? How do people find it?
It's unaltered 1776 or .myshopify.com.
All right. Jax Myers, keep your head above water, man. I appreciate you.
Hey, thank you, sir.
You're good. Sad situation there. All right, we have more. Well, we do need an expert every now and then on this show, so we're welcoming in the Dean of Business at Liberty University, former Congressman Dave BRAT. Congressman, at some point in time, you realize I'm going to screw up and call you the Dean of Liberty at Business University, and I'm not even going to come close to correcting myself. I'm just going to roll with it.
That's very good. Very good.
All right. We just had this new report out today. 100,000 small businesses are already gone for good. Somebody please explain to me how this is in any way not worse than the Great Depression.
Yeah, well, it is amazing. Since the beginning, the only thing they've kept score with is the virus, the deaths are up on the scoreboard, and then the people that get infected. But you don't have a similar count for, like you're saying, the businesses crushed, families crushed, people lose their jobs. 40% of the people won't get their job back. And we got to start scoring that and then leave it up to the people. I'm out in Lynchburg, Virginia, where we have several, no cases at Liberty University, just a few cases in the whole region. And one size fits all shut down every single business in Lynchburg, Virginia, and all the counties around us. And so, if they decide to shut things down a month or two from now, when the red dots start coming our way, that's one thing. But we just shut the whole country down on a one-size-fits-all theory from supposedly the smartest people in the world, and I think they got it wrong on that.
Why did they get it so wrong? I have my own theory on it. I just think they saw what China did. They saw people, China driving down the street. I'm sure you remember the videos in the trucks spraying the disinfectant all over the sky. And they saw China welding people into houses. And then another person decided that's what had to be done. And then another, and soon that just became the policy. But am I crazy? Look, I'm an uneducated idiot. Did something else happen that I missed?
No, I think you missed more of just the one-size-fits-all piece. Wuhan, the city is, over 10 million people. So that would, you'd expect New York City to mimic Wuhan, which it did. And then there's, 70 million people in the region. Well, that's a lot of population density. And so, yeah, China shut it down in its entirety, and they did a good job, but they also used totalitarian tactics that aren't being reported by our media. And you can ask yourself why that is. That makes no sense to me. The New York Times and Washington Post are protecting China at every turn. They're defending China. They're defending the CCP. They're defending the WHO, the World Health Organization, for some reason. And I think we all know what that reason is, right? Just anything where President Trump would have some success, he wants to try to get this economy moving. I think his gut has been more accurate. He said, social distance, be safe, do the right thing, but we got to get these businesses going. And Virginia, we're just finally starting to enter the beginnings of stage one. And like in Richmond, Virginia, last night, the mayor, we were going to open. All the business people are planning. Can you imagine that, right? You're planning to open. Yeah, you're doing all the legwork you got to do. And then the mayor last night says, nope, 2 more weeks. Right after you've done all the prep work, you put in your sweat equity, you spent your money. And then the mayor tells you at midnight, nope, we're 2 more weeks, and we'll see what comes after that, right? And, I'm the dean of a business school. I'd like to be planning things for the summer, the fall. And until these political folks get their story straight, it's very hard to plan anything.
What is the mayor of Lynchburg, what does he gain out of a decision like that? I mean, I have to assume you don't live in complete commie country, even if it happens to be a blue state. Why make that decision? You're mayor. Surely you want to stay mayor.
Yeah, well, the mayor of Richmond, 2 hours to the east, so they're a little bit more blue, and they've got, the government workers, et cetera, who get paid anyway. And they got their voting bloc who's going to vote their way anyway. And, the safe thing, if you're a politician, is just say, shut down, right? Then you're safe. You took the safest course possible. And not enough people understand what it takes to run a small business and what you're really telling to those folks who fight it out every day to make the ends meet and pay the bills. And the elites and the folks who are in high-paying jobs in the suburbs around Richmond aren't understanding what it's like to be at the lower end of the distribution. And supposedly the Democrats, that's what they care about, but they don't seem to understand it at all.
You brought up the media earlier and how they're going to do anything to get Trump, and obviously I agree with you on that, but you're going to have to forgive me. It seems a little more nefarious than that. I mean, even if you're trying to take down Trump, how are you repeating verbatim the communist talking points of communist China? Congressman, I think we got a real issue with the media in this country that they were liberal 20 years ago. Now, I think that's putting it very kind to just say they're a little liberal.
Yeah, no, they're not liberal, right? They're leftist. Now the liberals, the root word is liberty. They're gone, and the media are bought and paid for by the billionaire class, right? And so if you look at who China is giving special deals and who they're incentivizing, look at the biggest firms who control trillions in financial flows like BlackRock and some of the other financial leaders. China's giving them the special deals to get them on board. And they know once they get our big billionaires on board, the rest of American business has been going that way. So this week, just some good news. Since it's all bad, President Trump ended what's called the TSP, the Thrift Savings Plan, where all of our retired military invest their pension money. We were investing in Chinese firms building munitions aimed at the United States of America. And BlackRock, the same thing. And so President Trump ended that, and now he's looking, most people don't know this, when you invest in a Chinese firm, they can be based off on the island somewhere, right? They don't have to do any audited financial statements through our SEC that every firm here does, right? When you have a balance sheet with assets, the Chinese, you don't know whether they have any assets or not because they're backed up ultimately by the CCP, right? The Chinese Communist Party. And so most Americans have no idea that that's the case because China has had such significant growth that no one's had to worry about it. But now they're going to crack up a little bit, and you better look at your retirement portfolio because if China cracks up big time, your stuff's going to go to zero, and you got no claim on anybody in law.
Okay, so now that we have everybody out there in an absolute panic on whether or not they're invested in China, how do we find out? Is it just a simple matter of you call your broker and say, get us out? I mean, and we have these big businesses in America, correct me if I'm wrong here, like Apple, that do a lot of business with China. Does that count as being invested in China? What should we even look for?
Yep, Apple's making some moves. Some of the firms are bringing the supply chains back. But you can Google, there's some notable ones out there. The MSCI index, that was started by Morgan Stanley to show you this isn't trivial, right? And now they're up to a 10 to 15% mandatory buy of Chinese, right? And they're arguing that they're doing it for ethical reasons, right? You got to diversify that portfolio after all. Well, when you diversify a free market portfolio with communist goods, that also cross the military lines. And I'm serious, by the way. You can look all this up. 10, 20 firms in that index are building munitions. The largest supplier of the Chinese Navy is in there. Huawei is making news yesterday. And so Americans have not been paying any attention, but just ask your broker. There's funds out there dedicated to American firms, and at Liberty, we're starting a program with Kevin Freeman, who's got a program called Economic War Room. He's been doing this for years. Great guy, and he's going to be coming to Liberty, and we're going to help train financial advisors to not only follow, Judeo-Christian bedrock principles, but also to invest in the USA and to be smart with our investments. Not funding your enemy is always kind of a good first principle.
That's a very good first principle. What moves is China about to make? I've made this argument, and you are our Chinese expert, so please tell me if I'm full of garbage, that China collapsing their own economy while also collapsing ours with our response to this whole thing is something that China will take all day long because they don't have to stand for re-election. They can rise again, and the world's going to eventually buy from somebody.
Yeah, well, your folks, you don't need to take my opinion. Go out and read the Chinese themselves. There's a book you can just Google and get a PDF of it in 5 seconds called Unrestricted Warfare, 1999, written by 2 Chinese colonels who are now 2 Chinese generals. And they outline in order all the steps that are involved. By the way, they mentioned the blowing up the World Trade Towers in 1999, just if that perks your interest. But they mentioned bio-warfare, satellite warfare, taking down our banking system, going into the water, viruses, et cetera, right? So it's all there. So what's the next step? They're well on their way, right? They're testing our resolve right now. They're seeing how weak we are. Will Americans give up their liberties voluntarily like we just did for a month without raising our voice? You just shut down every rural area that doesn't have any red dots. And the American people were weak enough and just went along that without asking any questions or raising a stink. Well, then that's going to give China a very clear indication of who we are psychologically. So we're not in a Cold War, right? I mean, we're not in a kinetic war, right, with weapons and nukes and that kind of thing, but we're clearly in an economic war. We're clearly in an information and cyber war. And the virus piece, there's a new piece out today in the Washington Times by our friend Bill Gertz. Go read that one. Inside Trump administration officials have said they have knowledge of bio-warfare labs in China that are being used to create viruses to attack minority populations. So that's reported today by a 30-year long-running China expert. And so
what's the goal there?
Sorry
to interrupt, but what would be a goal of attacking minority populations unless they consider America, who's majority Caucasian, or, even if they were going after Hispanic, which is approaching, majority half levels? What's the benefit there unless they can specifically target racial groups?
Yeah. Well, they've got the 1 to 3 million Uyghurs, Turkic Muslims right on the west of China. Yeah. That's a key landmass as a buffer to China in concentration camps today. Re-education camps, concentration camps, taking away their civil liberties, and none of our liberals in the U.S. seem to care about human rights of the Chinese Uyghurs. And so the other books that folks ought to check out are Stealth War by General Robert Spalding. The key word there is stealth, war. And so I'm kind of answering your question slowly. What's with this virus stuff? How does that work? How can that? No one's stupid enough to do that. Well, the whole point is no one will find out, right? They still have plausible deniability on this virus, right? It's just because there's a level 4 and level 2 biolab sitting right there in Wuhan. Gee, I wonder if that could be at all related to the virus, right? And then the other great book is by Bill Gertz himself, who wrote the piece in the Washington Times. It's called "Deceiving the Sky," right? Our foreign policy should be so stealthy. It should be 7 layers below the earth, 6 layers above the sky, that not even our emperor knows what our ambassadors and strategy is, right? The emperor, our own Chinese emperor, should not know what it is, because we've been so good at it, right? It all goes back to Sun Tzu and the Art of War and all that kind of thing. So they got a long run in history, and they're very smart. They know they cannot attack us kinetically and win. And so that book I told you, the original, the 1999 Unrestricted Warfare, tells you if you're the weaker power, this is the way you attack.
I hate to ask because I know I've kept you on too long, but one last question. If the emperor is not making the call, and this is some super secret, James Bond style spy agency, who's making the call? Who is making these decisions?
Well, yeah. Now today it's the CCP, right? So it is Xi Jinping. And in Gertz's book, you'll find out Xi Jinping's 3 favorite people in history were Mao, Stalin, and Hitler. And the 2 he hated the most was Deng Xiaoping, who did the opening in China, decades back, and of course Ronnie Reagan, who took down the Soviet Empire. So we got a hardcore here, and so far everyone's kind of on the line on this. Did they intentionally inflict this virus or not? But when you read the bio of this guy and his love of power and totalitarian treatment of people and the people he admires, your thinking cap goes on in a whole new way.
Former Congressman Dave Bratt, Dean of Business at Liberty University, thank you so much for your time.
Hey, great to be on with you as always. Thanks for putting these stories out there. Good work.
Appreciate you. That is it. Our small businesses are under attack. We are not going to stop talking about it on this show because apparently the assault is not going to stop coming. I'll see you.